life. Fuck it hell. God damn. About time. You motherfucking... what is my problem? So far. This is pathetic. Am I even gonna get first with this? This is so bad. No, I didn't. That is unfucking believable how awful that was. But I don't have any more in me right now. But whatever. Man, that is a really pathetic score for using that upper bound squeeze, but God, it just... Honestly, I'll just take a run with first place with this because that squeeze is fucking crazy. I say that, but I've only been at this for 9 minutes today, but it just, I don't know. I feel like every time I've gotten that squeeze in the 3 hours or so that I've been redoing this, it's felt like basically luck every time. From TAS, that squeeze is 3 frames with perfect whammy, and there are essentially 2 whammies on it, because the song actually gave me an excuse to go back and test a mechanic that I already tested and I just forgot about, but now I'm definitely going to ingrain it, that hitting sequential sustains of the same fret early provides the same amount of star power as hitting them on time. So I really, yeah, you should always aim to hit sequential sustains like a frame or 2 early at the very least. There's no benefit, there's no detriment, so you really just want to make sure you're not getting late whammy. And so yeah, all the sequential red blues really don't matter in terms of whammy, but the following red yellow does. And another mechanic that I had to go back and retest was the whole extended hit window on chords of a sharing fret. And in this case, that turned out not to work. I think, if I remember correctly in Madhouse, maybe it's only when you're going from a double chord to a triple chord that contains the same frets, something like that, because the first star power sustain of Madhouse, that trick, you can definitely use extended hit window on it while already holding, or maybe it's just if you're already holding the number of frets that the chord contains, then it doesn't work, because that would also, I guess, make sense in the sense of Madhouse that I'm remembering, where you go from a yellow blue to a yellow blue orange. Maybe it's just a total coincidence that they happen to have the same frets involved. So anyway, yeah, this song got me to go back and retest a couple things that I'd been wanting to, at least. But yeah, these ticks just really are not good. Like, I'm almost positive you can beat this score without using the upper bound squeeze. Now, at that point, it probably is just easier, as crazy as that sounds right now to me, to go for the upper bound squeeze. But yeah, still, that's just all to say that this is pretty pathetic. It's even more sad because my solo act was actually, I pushed that definitely way too hard, especially for not using extended hit window on it. I very well could have overlapped that front end, so that was just kind of dumb for me to push it that hard. But I think my whammy for the solo act was also really bad. I used to strum that entire trill leading to that. I probably wouldn't do that nowadays. I would probably just strum the last 2 notes of the trill. But anyway, I did that even though I didn't really understand it back then in terms of like frame by frame breakdown, because strumming a hopo before a strum note unlocks the note window to be hit earlier. So that was all a consequence of that, but I stopped doing that on runs where I hit this upper bound squeeze, obviously, because no thank you. I would not forgive myself for throwing a run to that. But even that being said, not, pushing for really good whammy on that act makes missing the back end, possible. I mean, it would be you'd have to get a really awful squeeze to miss the back end, even with, totally mediocre whammy, but it's definitely possible under these kind of nerves. But anyway, the whole goal with the solo act is just not to overlap the front end again and not miss the back end. Everything else is just water under the bridge. Speaking of nerves, I didn't have any solo chokes in any regard on this, which was pretty nice. I expected at least one on those descending triplets at the end, but just got away scot-free on that regard, or on the, really awkward snaking pattern with the yellow sustains that go on way too long. Of course, I did have that awful outro choke, and that just made every single run after that so like scary to get to, because I've always struggled with that outro on that specific note that I missed. I always let off the orange on those first two chords too early, and that was a thorn in my side. And the first time I grinded this song, yeah, I don't even need to say it. I mentioned it during and right after. That last act was fucking awful. The first whammy on it was really bad, and so that's why my activation was so conservative, because I just, man, I felt like my ticks were just good enough to at least beat the record, as sad as that is to say, using this path. But yeah, I just had to play that a little bit safe, man. This is just one of those search and destroy first act-esque squeezes. Probably isn't quite as hard as that, but like it's really close. I mean, if TAS is to be believed, it's the same frame window with the same amount of whammies, and this act is not only further into the song, which automatically just makes it harder based on you get less experience per time invested and just the mental toll that takes on you, but the other side of it is that you have to still push for good ticks on the first act, which is really not fun. All things involved, even with the descending extended hit window fret trick that I was able to use on the front end to avoid both dropping ticks on the blue and activate before yellow ticks could start accumulating. Really helpful for that. That was actually one of the very first use cases I thought about when first coming across this mechanic. So glad that that at least made the first act a little bit less of a headache, but it's not that much less of a headache because of the fact that unlike the normal path where, yeah, you want to get as many ticks on the back end as possible, you want to get all the ticks you can on the back end of the first act, and so you can get the best star power for the second act. On this path, you have to get essentially frame perfect whammy, at least on the first chord, because the transition to the second chord is, you're very unlikely to get a frame perfect activation of that yellow red. So that inevitably is just going to eat into a few ticks on that back end, and also possibly eat into a few ticks on that final red-blue of that phrase, because you can't afford to hit that red-yellow late at all. And then even after that, of course, after, trying to get decent ticks on the first act with everything involved with that and getting the second act, you still have to keep pushing it. I mean, at least a little bit for the third and last. And just thinking back to that first run where I overlapped the front end of the solo, that was like, 285.40? So I was honestly really hoping to get 285.2 with this. And someday I might come back and try to do that if this gets beat, especially, of course. But yeah, the reason the score overall just sucks is mainly because of that first whammy on the last act. And although that last act was really bad, the ticks leading up to the solo were not even that good. And that first run that I overlapped the front end on was the only time I've ever been at 167 at the solo. Every other time, I really haven't even been that close. This was the second highest I think I had, and it was like, 68 or something. I've had as low as 912 at that point, so... And I was still willing to take it because of how hard that second act is. So yeah, pretty disappointing, but at the same time, I didn't have to kill myself over this today, so I'm happy in that regard, and I'll take it for now. At least I got to show off the squeeze at the very, for what that's worth.